Welcome to our planning committee, and could I welcome the two members of the public that have joined us, and can I also welcome anyone watching on YouTube. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Mrs Wilson, who is being substituted by Councillor Hensman. Everyone else is here, so fine. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest relating to items on the agenda having regard to the Code of Conduct for members? No. Item 3. Members, we have the minutes of the 31st of May, but the minutes for the 3rd of May are not yet ready. They will come to the next meeting. So I'm going to ask if anyone has any comments on the minutes of the 31st of May, and if so, if not, would someone like to move them as a true record, please?
Move the 31st as a true record.
Thank you very much. As I find a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Mrs Spray. All those in favour, I sign them as a true record. Thank you, members. Item 4, public question time. We have no general questions. In fact, we have no speakers at all this evening, so we'll be going straight on to item 5, planning applications. And the first application is 5A, application 21-037-474, 14 Freeborns Road, Witham. Can be found on pages 6 to 35, and it is going to be presented by Fiona. Fiona, over to you. Good evening.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so this application is number 21/03747/4, and it seeks the erection of 3 buildings to provide 10 commercial units within use classes E.G., B2 and B8, together with access, parking, landscaping and associated works. The site application address is 14 Freeborns Road in Witham. So this is the location of the application site. You should just be able to see it outlined in the middle there. So it's on Freeborns Industrial Estate, which is an employment policy zone, which supports B1, B2 and B8 uses. So it's on the eastern side of Witham, adjacent to the A12. Here's a closer look of the location. So it's to the west of Freeborns Road and to the south of Wheaton Road. It's a previously developed site which formed a meatpacking and processing facility consisting of quite a collection of buildings. Here's the location plan, so you can see the red line boundary for the site. So it currently has 2 access points, one to the northwest of the site and one to the southeast of the site, one from Wheaton Road and one from Freeborns Road. So I've got some site photos here. So this is from the junction of Freeborns Road and Wheaton Road, looking south at the site. At the time of the site visit, demolition of the existing facility had begun, so you'll know that that was in place at the time of the site visit. This is further south along Freeborns Road, looking west towards the application site. This is the north of the application site from Wheaton Road. And then from the south, then this is just to the south of the site, looking back up Freeborns Road. And again, looking towards the south of the site from Freeborns Road. And then this is the northeastern corner, so you'll spot to the left of the picture is an existing horse chestnut tree, which is to be retained as part of the proposal. And then for clarity, I've just got some views of the street here from when the previous facility was still there. So this is from the north, from Wheaton Road, which shows the existing access from Wheaton Road, and from the south, and you can see the existing access from Freeborns Road. So the application seeks 5,442 square metres of commercial use, and that's flexible use between Class EG, B2 and B8, Class EG being the previous B1. There is 3 buildings, each providing commercial units. You've got 4 units to the western building, 3 units to the other 2 buildings on the site. each unit would have parking for each individual unit with HGV parking with loading bays, and there's also electric vehicle charging and disabled bay parking as well. There's also 26 cycle spaces proposed as part of the development, which would be dotted around the site, and details of which would be provided following condition. The existing site did have a larger unit on it, and although there is a reduction in existing floor space, this does bring a vacant site into use with appropriate flexible uses within the site. So you'll note that I should go on to the elevations of the proposals. So this is units 1 to 4, which are on the western side of the site, and units 5 to 7, which are in the north-eastern side of the site, and units 8 to 10, which are in the south-east side of the site. So each of the units follows a similar design, with mezzanines at first floor level. To the ground floor, each unit would be provided with a roller shutter door along with pedestrian access. The material palette is traditional with an industrial estate, with areas of coloured cladding to provide visual interest to the frontages. Units 5 to 7 would also feature PV panels to the roof slope, and an air source heat pump would be provided as part of the proposals. So here's a street scene. So this would be from Freeborns Road. So you can see the areas of planting that they're proposing. You can see the 2 units on the eastern side of the site, and you can also see that horse chestnut, which is being retained. You may be aware that there was a previous application at the site in 2020, and so this is a kind of a revised scheme from that. This application scheme saw 6 units, also within flexible use, and this new application has been brought forward as the old application didn't meet occupiers' requirements, and that the main changes are the size and number of the units and amendments to access arrangements. So you see here previously the access for Freeborns Road was being maintained, and the existing access from Wheaton Road. So this is the one area that is being retained from the previous scheme, and that's that landscaping plan. So you'll see that the buffer to the north and the east of the site is being retained, and also with some additional planting now that the proposed access arrangements are only from Wheaton Road to the northern site. And there's also a wildflower area being provided to provide a deeper buffer to the northern edge. In terms of ecology, then there's no objections, subject to an appropriate lighting scheme and a biodiversity enhancement strategy. You may have seen earlier today, this was an update to the conditions for the application site. So between the time of the agenda being published and this meeting, then additional information was provided by the applicant by way of an updated flood risk assessment with a technical note, and also the construction environmental management plan. The relevant consultees have assessed these, and they have assessed that they do comply with the previous recommendations of the condition, and therefore these have been changed to compliance conditions as opposed to dischargeable conditions. So overall, in terms of adverse impacts, none of these have been identified. And in terms of benefits, then there's the provision of employment land through the development of a brownfield site, bringing a vacant site back into employment use, providing a more efficient, flexible and fit-for-purpose industrial and commercial units. There's also the economic benefits, not just through the construction process, but also through the occupation phase. The proposal will provide a high-quality design and layout and improvement on the existing site. And there are also sustainability benefits through the provision of electric vehicle charging, cycle parking and solar panels. So having regard to the adverse impacts and benefits, and having regard to the requirements of the MPPF as a whole, officers conclude that the benefits of the proposal outweigh the adverse impacts and recommend planning permission be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, this application brings a lot of benefits, I think, to Witham. The industrial estate inside the Witham bypass is ageing, a bit like me. One of my first jobs as a teenager was one of those units there, and they're still there, and it is looking in places a bit tired. So when these applications come forward to replace older units with more modern units, it's really good if the opportunity can be taken to bring forward features which we would expect in the year 2022, which we wouldn't have seen in the 1960s. So the fact that it's got solar panels, good. More planting, good. Even wildflower area, excellent. It's going to visually, I think, improve the area significantly. You've got electric charging points, cycle parking, disabled parking. It's ticking a lot of boxes. Yes, the design is a bit utilitarian, but you expect to see that on an industrial estate. You know, you're not going to get a Gothic design, although that might be interesting. So the only point I wanted to raise is on the lighting. I had a good look at the report this afternoon, and it's not a very well presented report at all. I mean, it's got a lot of this is not officers, this is the developers. It's got a lot of spelling mistakes, poor definitions, and the biggest error it makes is to say, well, it's in an industrial area, therefore it doesn't matter that much. If you remember the first slide, could you put that back up? That'd be really helpful.
Was the first?
That one? No, then. Next one? Yes. Thank you. I think I raised the same point last time this came up. Yes, it is an industrial area, but it faces directly across the A12 into the countryside and the River Blackwater on the other side, which is a completely unlit area. So, although it is an industrial area, we do have to be mindful of that, as opposed to perhaps we might be less mindful if it was right in the middle of the site. So what I'd like to do is to propose approval, but for them to come back with an update on the lighting, probably a prior to installation condition. And there are specific reasons why I'd like to do that. There are 30 lights proposed, 9 on 8 metre columns, 10 floodlights on 6 metres on the walls, and 21 bulkheads round. There's an awful lot of lighting, all of them LED. It says on page 10 that they all have horizontal cut-offs. They don't. 19 of them are shown in the lighting report to have what's called zero upward light ratio. But, you know, in our standard condition we ask for the tilts. There's no tilt information in there at all. And the 21 bulkheads they're shown, they're not. None of them are contained below the horizontal. They all shine out sideways and upwards. So I think they could do better on that point and come back with some more sustainable proposals and some more detail. But and that's my proposal, that we recommend approval, subject to them coming back with a revised lighting report. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Does that find a seconder? It does. Thank you very much. Did you wish to speak, Councillor? Speak. Did you want to comment on the lighting questions, please? Before I put this.
They've obviously submitted an external lighting assessment, which is very similar to the one that we considered on the last application. So the condition is very similar to that. We can require that further details be required, particularly relating to the issues that you've said, and we can relate that to our standard lighting condition on that. It would have to be it couldn't be a pre-commencement condition because we haven't had agreement from the applicant for that. But we could make it an above grade condition. So they could commence development, but they couldn't do anything above ground level. So we could make it that, but yeah, it couldn't be a pre-commencement condition.
Happy with that, Councillor Abbott? Yeah, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think this is one of the examples of the way to go when it comes to relifing or renewing an industrial asset on an industrial park. I think they've taken into account and consideration a number of factors, as Councillor Abbott mentioned, things around the sustainability element of it, solar panels, EV charging, and cycle parking too, taking into account that whoever might move into those units might not just rely on having to use a car to get to work, but also cycle and walk as well. So in that respect, I very much support Officer's recommendations for approval on this application. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to add anything new or further? No one has. Oh, Councillor Swear.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to back up the comments made by Councillor Abbott and Councillor Wickie with regards to sustainability. It's really good to see it in here, especially the PV panels. But I noticed that it's 21%, just over the projected minimum on policy LPP 77. I just wondered, could I just ask the officers, because all of that's good, and as Councillor Ricky said about it's the way forward. What about the actual installation and the fabric of the building? Because that's going to be important in the winter time. Just wondered if we could have a comment about that.
We haven't got any details about the installation. It's not something that we are able to require at planning application stage, and it isn't something that we could condition. It would be covered under building regulations, though, and they have very high standards that they would have to meet, and they would have to comply with all requirements there.
Thank you, Amy. Well, it has been moved and seconded that we grant this application with the updated conditions 8 and 19 and with a request regarding the lighting as proposed by Councillor Abbott and seconded by Councillor Mr Beavers. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. That now brings us on to item 5B, application 22004788HH, Fraser Cottage, Pole Lane, White Knockley. Pages 36 to 50. This item comes to us because the agent is related to a member of staff, but we will have a small presentation, please.
Thank you. This is application 22004788HH. It's for a two-storey side, single-storey rear and side carport extension, along with alterations to the garage roof to form a first-floor office accommodation. And the application site is Fraser Cottage, Pole Lane, White Knockley. So, as I've said, this is a householder planning application for the erection of a two-storey side extension, a single-storey rear extension and side carport extension. The proposal also includes the raising of the roof of an existing detached garage and the erection of a dormer window to its roof slope. This would provide first floor accommodation to be used as an office in connection with the dwelling. On the screen you can see a site location plan. So Fraser Cottage is situated in the middle. Moving on to some aerial views. Fraser Cottage is a detached dwelling located in a rural setting outside of a defined settlement boundary. It is located on the southern side of Pole Lane, adjacent to Sydney Cottage and agricultural buildings to the west. The associated garden is bounded to the east and south by agricultural fields, which you can see here on the aerial view. The application property has been previously extensively extended. In its original form, it would likely to have formed a modest bungalow. A detached garage is situated to the west of the site, with access from the adjacent farm access. I'll just take you through some of the photographs. This is the frontage of the site, and you can see here two-storey extension to one side, which would have been added on, along with a single-storey element here, dormer windows to the roof. This is the other side of the front, so again, a large two-storey extension to this side. And this is the rear. So this is the back of one of the two-storey extensions with a balcony to the rear. And again, this is the back of the larger two-storey extension that's existing, again with a balcony. And to the side you can see the existing single-storey element to this side. And these are the existing side elevations. And here we have the existing garage. And these are the existing elevations as well. So you can see where these two extensions have already been added. So over the years, the dwelling has been extended to both sides with two-storey gable projecting extensions to the front and rear, with large projecting balconies to the rear elevation. A single-storey element has been added to one side. The roof has been converted and extended with dormer windows to the front and rear. In total, this has resulted in a dwelling which has an undefined sprawling form with a horizontal emphasis. The current proposal further exacerbates this piecemeal approach to extending the dwelling, with a variety of separate elements. So this is the proposed block plan, and it's this two-storey element down the side here where you can see my cursor. That's the two-storey extension which is being proposed. We then have an additional carport, single-storey carport at this end, and a small extension, single storey, here. And then the garage is being extended through the raising of the roof with the provision of the dormer window to one side. So these are the proposed extensions. So we can see the front elevation with the two-storey extension to one side, and that's the rear elevation again with that two-storey extension, and then the side elevations with these projecting elements of the roof coming out. And the ground floor plan, this is the extension to one side here, and the first floor plan, again the two-storey element of the extension. These are the existing elevations of the garage, and these are the proposed elevations. So you can see the ridge has been raised, and then the dormer window put on one side with then an external staircase to access the first floor. Whilst some elements of the proposal raise no objections, the two-storey side extension and the dormer extension to the garage roof are considered to be overly large and of poor design. The proliferation of the proposed extensions, in combination with the piecemeal development of the dwelling, which has already been undertaken, would result in an overdevelopment of the host property. They are not compatible with the original dwelling and fail to be subordinate in scale or appearance. The development would have a detrimental impact on the character and appearance of the original dwelling and its countryside setting. It is therefore recommended that planning permission be refused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you. Quite detailed. Thank you. Members. Councillor Mrs. Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. I really going to keep this quite short. I'm absolutely support and agree with the recommendation for refusal. I was going to say I think this is a step too far. I think it's several extensions too far. It already, to me, looks incongruous for where it is and for its setting, and I personally wouldn't want to see any more additions to it. I just don't think it's appropriate for the site, so I'm happy to move recommendation for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Spray, does that find a seconder? It does in several places. Do you all wish to speak? I'll start with Councillor Johnson. Do you wish to speak? Councillor Mann, do you wish to speak?
Just to agree that we do occasionally get examples of this where you start off with a rural bungalow and it ends up like South Fork, and it's not to be encouraged. And I agree with the very clear report. This is very much overdevelopment, I think, of the site. Although the principle of development is fine, but something that is more in keeping, I think, is required.
Yeah. Councillor Ritchie, you also indicated.
Nothing further to add.
No one else wish to add anything new? Well, it has been moved and seconded that we refuse this application. All those in favour of refusal? That is unanimous also. Thank you, members. Sorry, I'm forgetful there. It's a long time since you've sat beside me. Thank you, members. That brings us to the end of our applications this evening. I know it's a short meeting, but Chris did ask me that the first item needed to be dealt with quite quickly, so I agreed that we would have a short meeting. So I thank you all for your attendance, and we'll close the meeting at 7:40. I think that might be a record. It's not 12. Not